Welcome back to the Who, Which, Where podcast, where I talk to witches about witch stuff, witch life, witch stories, and sometimes a little witchcraft. Today I'm talking to Macy of the Witch Bitch Amateur Hour, or WBAH if you're in the know. WBAH is actually the first podcast I ever listened to, and is one of only two that I listen to regularly. Together with her cousin Charlye, Macy introduces us to a new crystal, plant, or other witchy subject every week. Except when they tell listener stories on episodes known by fans as spooky-sodes. In this episode, Macy spins stories about moving from the country to the city and back again, an odoriferous run-in with a hyena, and a visit from the Baba Yaga. The interview actually ran a little long because, as I suspected, talking to Macy was very much like listening to the Witch Bitch Amateur Hour for the first time. It's like catching up with an old friend that seems as familiar as family. I had to cut the interview in half, so be sure to come back on the new moon in July, on the 9th, to hear about her thoughts on the effects of the internet on community, who influences her witchcraft, and to hear one of the funniest and most ridiculous stories to ever be told about a dog fight. Now let's get into some stories. Welcome, Macy.
Thank you.
I'm very glad to have you here. Super excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to it so much, so much now, over a few weeks, and I'm ready. I'm ready for us to just chat, man.
Me too, and thank you for coming.
Of course.
So please introduce yourself. Let the people know who you are, what you do. Hit those socials if you want to.
Okay. I am Macy from the 50% of the Witch Bitch Amateur Hour. I do that show along with my cousin / essential sister at this point, Charlye, and we're a couple we're a couple of witches, and we just started a podcast about our journey, and we bring topics every week, just kind of what we're feeling or what we're looking into, and we talk about them, and those topics do get discussed in and out of a whole bunch of streams of other bullshit that we cover along the way as we grasp to stay on topic.
That's what we're there for. The bullshit.
I'm so glad. Thank goodness, honestly. But yeah, so that's the podcast again. It's Witch Bitch Amateur Hour. You can find us over on Instagram at Witch Bitch Amateur Hour. We're on Facebook as well. You can just search the title or go to at Witch Amateur Hour. And we have a Slammin' Coven over there, Facebook group. That's a good ass time.
It's what actually my favorite thing about Facebook.
It's mine too. Like I don't scroll my timeline. I don't like to go there. It's not a good place. But I like have it purely for that group. So I'll like open the app and like hit the groups. And it's like, that's my immediate motion. And I go straight to the coven and the Patreon coven. It's just a great time. And you're a mod, which is great. Thank you for that. Thank you for your service.
Oh no. Well, thanks for having me. Who would you say your podcast is for?
See, that's a tough question because Charlye and me talk about sometimes how we don't even we don't know that. We don't know why people listen to us. But if I had to guess, I think I would hit on the beginners aspect, but at the same time, I mean, maybe not like total beginners because we've like made several mistakes along the way, but just people who are perhaps interested but intimidated, I guess is what I would say. If you're really, really interested in the metaphysical, and it is very, very, very overwhelming, and if you're a bit intimidated and perhaps maybe a bit alone feeling, and where to start and all of that, I would say it's good for that. It's a really laid back podcast. The Coven's a very laid back place. We don't think too highly of ourselves, and we just like to talk. It's me and my cousin having conversations in small, tiny rooms, and you get what you get what you get out of that. But I think I've heard that it gives people a sense of community and things like that.
That's what I was going to say. If you're if you're a solitary witch, but you still want community, this is it. This is where you go.
That makes me really, really happy to hear. And we started it out Not like specifically for that reason. Like, we didn't start out at all to be like, we're gonna be successful. We didn't think that for 2 goddamn seconds. But
Surprise.
yeah, and but we did start it just to see who else was out there. Like just to kind of speak out into the void and see if there's others out there who were like us and were trying to find their way and things like that. And it's just amazing that that involved to it just being this place that's connected a lot of people.
How did you get the money? Since I started this like 10 minutes ago,
Mm.
I know I had a bunch of the stuff already because I do YouTube and other random things, but it didn't seem like you guys did that. How did you get funding for this?
We started as cheap as you physically, humanly possibly could. Like we are so deadly serious when we talk about on the podcast every now and again, just like describing the setup of our first recording, and it is as bare bones almost as you can get. Like we basically, I had a computer at the time, like a MacBook. It was a 2013 that I got with a scholarship from high school,
Nice.
and I still had.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It served me well, and we bought a couple of those little blue snowball mics. They're like $50 each, and it could not handle my voice, and I blew it out immediately. And but we got a couple of those, and that's pretty much it. Like, I mean, that was like a purchase, and we of course got, like, we didn't even have mic arms yet. Like, we just literally bought a couple of snowballs and used a free recording software, and then just had to pay out a little bit of money for hosting and stuff like that. But I mean, we started very, very, very bare bones. So I mean, it's like that's one thing I do like to talk about, is that it is absolutely possible to be that completely just brand new to it, and it's still pan out.
I will say that having heard other people who recently who also start like that, you guys did a great job editing. I'm learning how hard that is.
It
It's
is.
not
Well,
like
no, because with audio editing, your mind just wants to fuck off so hard, or at least mine does. And so it's like, you're trying to listen, and you're listening for any, because we like to take out even if it's minor things like little sniffs and throat clears,
hmm
just because sometimes that can take you out of the lull that a conversation can put you in. And so it's like you're trying to listen for those, but then you start, like, I don't know, thinking about literally anything else. And that's where I run into trouble. And so I'm pretty good. Like, I'll sit down and I'll edit an episode usually in 1 or 2 sittings. I like to like make it. I set the time down, I make some tea, and I'm like, all right. But at the same time, it usually takes longer still than it should, because half that time I'm having to go back 5 minutes and be like, what the fuck were we talking about? And have to, because I zone out a lot. So I do editing's a fun time.
you recognize those ums though.
Ah! I say it I say it so much that I know what the waveform looks like.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You
Yeah.
recognize it.
Yeah, I don't even. I just see it. And I'm like, and I'll just highlight it and take it out, and it's just like, man, I throw those down. Yeah, no, I feel you. I feel you on that. But it's exciting. I'm glad you're doing this. Like it. I'm so pro starting a podcast. It's just it's a fun project to do.
It seems like it. I'm having a good time.
It is, and this is a fun thing. You just get to talk to people. I really, that's cool. You're gonna get some cool stories.
I hope so. That's what I want. I'm here for the stories,
Here
man.
for the stories, man. I get it.
Now, I Googled you because
Oh my god.
I want to be like Sean Evans and ask the deep questions and have
Oh
them
yeah,
say,
man.
"Oh my God, what a good question! You did your job. You
Yeah,
did
I'm
a good
still in
job."
shock that I've been Googled. Oh.
And so I saw what you did in the past. How did you move from marketing to this?
A solid bit of being completely disenchanted. I went to business school. I have a business degree with an emphasis in marketing. And so naturally, that's, what my jam was. It was like, well, I'm going to work in marketing and it's going to be great. And, you're in college and you're still, still very young. I'm still young, but like you're younger then. And, I was just, I grew up in the country. And even though I always felt, totally at peace here, I had it in my head, like, but I'm so made for the city. I got to live in the city and I got to get in there. I've just got to get
Really?
in there. Yes.
That's
And
shocking.
I know. Well, it did not end well. And so, I got a job, like kind of big Fortune 500 company. It was like I landed it and I was super excited about it. And it was my first big girl job. And I got my apartment in the city and it was a cute ass apartment. And I set it up exactly how I wanted, which that part was cool. Living alone for the first time is a special part
Hmm.
of your life. It's very memorable. And, but marketing was really, really fucking lame. And it was not what I thought, because as an artist, I was like more of a creative marketer, and corporate marketing and like creative marketing could not be more different. They're so far on the other side of each other. And so I realized really quickly that not only was that good for me, but neither was the city. Like, I mean, it was just, I was a rat in a cage. I hated it so much. And I wasn't even like in the thick of it. Like, I lived in a sprawling complex of older apartments that had like lawns, and I just lived with old people, which was great. And even that was making me like claw at the walls. I just needed space. And so then I was able to land a position at an animal sanctuary for marketing.
Yeah, explain that.
It was so Hunter and me. He had graduated. He was a semester. I graduated a semester early, so he came a semester later, and we had lived together for I think about a year at this point, and we just both knew we were so burned out by what we were doing and by the city. And he grew up in the city, but living in a rural college town, he kind of fell in love with the country. And so we were just like, we've got to get the fuck out of here. Like, this is just bad news. And I was able to I was looking for jobs, which is never a fun time ever.
Mm-mm.
And I was just looking for jobs and looking for jobs. And I found a marketing position for an animal sanctuary. And I was like, well, all right, like that I could get behind. Like, that would be pretty sweet. And we knew that we were wanting to come out this way. And at that time, it was made aware to us that we could buy the house that we now have. And so we were like, all right, well, let's do it. Let's make the move out there and let's do this. And so I was able to land that first, and I went ahead and moved out this away, and he stayed in the city until so we kind of had to like do that whole
Yeah.
shtick. But I started working there, and it was still marketing. I still didn't love it. And it was social media marketing, which I
That's
don't
kind of
like.
funny.
I'm bad at it. Like, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know how it works. Like, I get it, but I hate. Dude. I'm like I'm a luddite, man.
Yeah,
I
that's
just
why I laugh.
oh, dude. And so I did pretty well, and like and my job was like fundraising and whatnot, and all of that. I'm a good writer, so I wrote, kind of like what all was going on in fundraising and whatnot. But the animals were cool. That was cool. I got to work around exotic animals very, very, very closely. And that was, I'll never forget that. Like, that was cool. These animals are just absolutely unbelievable.
What was your favorite part? What was your favorite experience there?
There's a few. There's one that's really gross, but it's just so ridiculous. And to even say that this has happened to anyone.
I
But
think I know what you're going to say.
well, there was a hyena
Oh,
that,
this
that
is my
lived.
favorite.
Yeah, she was so amazing. She was a spotted hyena and built like a Mack truck, man. She was so fascinating to look at. I thought she was cute. A lot of people thought she was hideous, but I thought she was incredible. And she was disgusting, though. Like, she was a nasty, nasty, nasty creature and loved all things disgusting. She wallowed in filth and it made her life pure. And so basically, what she would do every day, and this was in the hot summer, she had a ritual. She would, because of what she was, like the cuts of meat that she could get had fucking bones and shit. She could get like the femurs, and because she's a hyena, it didn't make
Yeah,
a
they
difference. You
got
can't
that jaw
feed that
strength.
shit all to a tiger or very much of it, and or not too much of it. And so she would get all that. And so what she would do, like every single day, is that she would go and she would like grab some sort of big hunk of unmentionable, like a whole leg of whatever, and she would put it, she had a little water pool, like a little water trough that she'd get, and you just like see her little head sticking out of it, and you'd walk by and there's just like a head sitting like a chin, like a dog on the edge, just like watch it. Was super cute. But she would like drag a hunk of meat and drop it in the water like every day in the morning time, and then she'd wait until it's the heat of the day when this disgusting meat hunk had been floating in the water all day and already had like maggots on it, and then she'd get in. Oh, and
Nice.
she'd get in that water, and it would be, she was so into it. It was disgusting. And so I was over there, and I was, one of my parts of my job was to take pictures of them, like take pictures of all the animals and whatnot. And so I made rounds several times a day, just talking to everybody, and I knew all their names. And, and I was like kind of talking to her, and she never did this, but in one such lightning fast motion, she stood up and just shook all of her water off, and I
Nice.
got completely covered in it, like completely covered in nasty death hyena water. Uh, and I had no clothes. There was just, it was a moment of like there was nothing to do about it. There was nothing to be done about it, and I
Oh.
knew it in that moment, and I couldn't even be mad about it because it was just the most absurd moment in time. And I just remember looking at her and just being like, "God damn it!" And that was all I could think. But I love it now. The memory makes me happy. But it was cool. Like they had different personalities, and I had my favorites and whatnot, and I just learned a lot. Like lions are very different from tigers in their personality, and in my experience, they're way more chill, so much more chill
It
than
seems like
tigers.
it.
Oh my god, I loved the lions. They were so great. The tigers were just kind of, they were shifty.
Yeah, they
Like
seem pretty wound.
they are, and they're cool,
Ready.
and like they'll come up and they'll chuff at you and do, like rub the little fence and look like a cat, and I can see if you've not been around one for you could want to pet one, but
It
I
looks like
don't
a
see
cat.
the people who like work with tigers and aren't afraid of them blow my mind, because having worked with tigers, I am terrified of tigers. Like I've just, the day that you hear a tiger slap another tiger's face and it rattles your teeth, even though you're 100 yards away, like it's like, no, man. Like we could not even begin to compete with them. Let's just leave them alone. Let's just leave them alone. It's
And people want to
incredible.
bring that into their house.
I don't know. I
Baffling.
I don't know. Like it just is absolutely, and it is like that's where a lot of them come from, is that they're ex house
Yeah.
pets, or like people get, and then they turn into only a 3-month-old cat that's like then already pretty much old enough to kill you if it wants to, like it's just, and you can get one for cheap. You can get a tiger cub for nothing, and so
Like
people
two
are,
grand.
yeah, and so people get one, and it's just like, y'all don't even understand. Like this thing is a killing a machine. That's
Yeah.
what it does. And I just, yeah, it's crazy, but they're cool animals, but they will beat you to death if they want to.
It's awesome. So back to witchcraft, so we're sort of winding back around. What are some of the biggest challenges you've gotten from locals or family, not counting Charlye and Hunter?
Sure. I
If you've had any.
well, here's the thing. I probably could have more. I purposely am a bit isolated. I'm a bit of a natural hermit. So I don't stray out into public more than I have to. I even like my previous job, I worked from home, yeah, like for a lot of that time. And so, I mean, it could be worse. Like the locals around here, it's a mixed bag. You have some that don't really care, and you have some that will be scared, but I just don't engage in many of them in interactions. So it's tough to say. Like it is weird. Like there are people that perhaps if I run into one that I went to high school with and tell them what I'm doing now, most of them would be like, "Sweet, dude, that sounds good," because I was running with that crowd from an early age. But I don't know. I just kind of stay out of their way and they stay out of my way. And just having grown up in an environment that I did not prescribe to, I've just learned to do that for a very long time, and I'm just kind of maintaining doing that. But family wise, we're very fortunate. I mean, at least, like my like mother's side, highly, highly fortunate. I mean, they're all super into it. They listen to the podcast. Like,
That's so cool.
they are so into what we do. And we're beyond lucky. And we're an artsy family, they're very musical or creative in some way. And this kind of weird shit is not too terribly strange, but it is nice to know that they're out there and they're supporting us, and we're many of our original listeners just a hair before you.
Have you gone out to, like, I don't know, do you do social events where, I guess not because COVID hit. I just wanted to see, like, the side eye thing. Like, when I go to PT and I talk about things and I'll mention a
It's
podcast and I get this sort of, oh, that's what it's about, that.
yeah, that's normal. Like that's run of the mill. Or a polite hmm,
Yeah.
something like that, which whatever, like that actually happened to me. That's a very, what? Yes, that's exactly right. I went to get my haircut the other day, and it's the first haircut that I've ever gotten that my mom did not cut, pretty much, or like since I was 5. And so I like went and got a haircut from a stranger, and she was like, doing like the what do you do? And I do
Yeah.
always have a moment of uh, and I start it with that exact laugh. Like when somebody asks me what I do, it's this moment of like, oh shit, this question. Okay. Because not only do I have, not I have to say, I get to say, but I'm a full-time podcaster, and I'm sure they're already like, yeah, right.
Is that
Okay,
like you do?
this guy. But then it's followed. Oh, what's it about? Witchcraft and spiritualism, and it almost is always a oh, but
Especially where you live.
exactly, and that's like not like a wonderfully, like a lot of hunters family are like interesting, like they might not believe in it and whatnot, but they find it interesting, they're like, that's just that makes sense. They know me, and they're very accepting, and so I don't think they're just surprised by it. They're like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
you
just
know.
Macy.
Yeah, so they're super cool about it. But we're just really, really lucky in that regard, especially. And it's really, it's a mixture of like saddening and just maddening, reading some of the experiences that people like open up about in the coven of not being
Hmm.
accepted. And that just it's a shame. It's just a real shame.
Does it ever give you imposter syndrome? Do you ever have that?
I I don't get it about my spiritual ability. Like that I get it about what a lot of other things. Like I got I get like imposter syndrome all the time regarding like just me being like worthy of having the podcast audience, stuff like that, like being like would it like those kinds of just like intrusive thoughts of just being like, yeah, but like you're just and like you're not like super, I don't know. I just like it's hard to explain, but and like when I went full time, like the feelings of being like, should you be allowed to do this? Like, why do you get to do this? And why do like, like why do you get this opportunity? And it's like I get it about that, to where I doubt. I'll like have moments of doubt of being like, are you just really flying by the seat of your pants here? Like, like I'll have that. But when it comes to witchcraft, for some reason, well, I'll have moments to where I just don't practice it as much. When I am practicing, I just have this, I just know it's going to work, which is maybe a little weird, but I never doubt.
So you don't have that feeling of this isn't real.
No, I really don't, like, because of, and I think part of it is because I don't force it when I'm not feeling it. So when I usually do witchcraft, I am feeling it, and I'm talking to things that I can't even put a name on, like, and I've just done it. I pay close attention to what I do and follow what happens afterwards. And after doing that, and the just massive changes that I've wrought upon my life and the lives of others directly following work that I've done, I don't doubt it. I really, really don't.
That's baffling to me.
And part of me wonders if it makes me delusional, but like
Who
I
cares if it works?
yeah, I don't know. I think it's because it's the first place that I truly felt at home at, like in my own skin, doing the work that I do here. Especially once I kind of like nestled in to this land and it took me in and I took it
Mhm.
in and we kind of had this like soul merge. I get a lot of power from this place. And I think that's part of it is just the things that I've experienced here. I do believe because they're so intense you feel like your skin's going to come off, and it's just I don't believe my own brain has the ability to just conjure that up as a placebo. I don't.
I finally started to get some of that.
Good.
Like when I came home from work the other day, I opened the gate and stepped over the gate, the threshold, and I was like, "Oh, I'm home."
Yeah. Yeah. Good. I've wondered about that before because you are now in Arizona from Colorado, and that's just such a different terrain and a
And I'm from
different
Virginia.
man. Yeah. So you've had to get to know in a lot of different environments, and at least for me, different. They're different. They're handled differently, and
Yeah.
the spirits here and there are different. And so you're having to kind of let them know you and you know them. And I do feel like that's got to be an interesting progress or process that takes some time.
It's it's really weird because I always say that Virginia is older and has the older mountains because I am a mountain person. I can't be without mountains. And then
Yeah,
I went to Germany, which is even older, but I didn't really have a connection.
yeah,
And then we came out to Colorado, and I was like, whoa, everything's way younger and wild here.
yeah.
And now here in Arizona, this is the most wild of anywhere.
Interesting. See, I guess I wouldn't think that just because of it not having like like a bunch of forest, in the sense of wild. Um, but it is a tough place to live. I feel like if you're a creature out there, which is gonna put a very interesting energy around the place.
It's like if you compare, like, let's say a beagle is Virginia.
Okay,
It'll go out and run around.
sure.
Out here, it's like a freaking, I was going to say wolf, but that's too cliche. It's like a hawk out here.
Yeah,
It's very fierce,
yeah, yeah. I
and you
believe
can't
that.
touch it.
Yeah,
You
that's
got to be
true.
careful.
Yeah, there's a lot of pokey things. There's a lot of
Yeah.
stingy things. There's a lot of poisonous things. Like, yeah,
The air wants to kill you.
yeah, it's a real like can't stand the
Actually,
heat,
the
get out of
dirt
the
wants to
kitchen
kill you.
place.
Valley fever, it'll kill you.
Oh my god, what is
I
valley
mean, it
fever?
can kill you. It is a fungal infection that is in the ground, the
Wonderful.
dirt. So if a big windstorm comes, you can
Oh
kick up
yeah.
a bunch of crap.
Whoa. Yeah. See, I know nothing about desert. I like it. I think it's cool. I've been to it a handful of times. Saw my first tarantula wild at a desert, and I didn't just love it, but I remember it. But I don't have. I've never lived I've never lived anywhere that's not wooded, other than like the city for 1 year of my life.
Me neither until now, and I do really miss it. I miss trees like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It was shade in general. I feel
Yeah.
like.
But I mean, I would always go and touch them and talk to them.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's they're a beacon of energy that I can understand. Like we have a wavelength that's similar enough to where trees I can just talk to. Like ghosts, not always, and very rarely, and usually one just has to shove its way through my brain, I guess. But like trees, I've always been that way looking back as a kid, So yeah, I would miss them, I think, if I had to leave them. Well, I did.
Yeah, I miss them a bunch. So, how long do you want to do the podcast?
I think as long as we can, there's a lot of really good podcasts out there that have been at it for a long time, uh, over a decade, and I like how, and I think we could, but with how we've just made WBAH a continuously evolving, growing thing, it allows it to be open ended. And, likely the format is going to remain the same, but Charlye and me are allowed to change and grow and learn along the way. And I like to think that that will keep it fresh and make it so that it can stay current. And as long as we're always trying to learn and be open, we should be able to keep at it, you know. And there's other things, you know, we're always spitballing different ideas to come off of WBAH, you know. And WBAH essentially is like kind of the source, and it can lead to other things. And as to whether it's a forever thing, I don't know. But it's fun for us, and it's already does not feel like 3 years, you know. Like
I know.
it's crazy to me, and I don't really understand it. But it's so like I it feels like at most 2 years, and I think part of that is at fault of 2020 because I don't remember that year
Yeah.
at all. It's just like a blank thing,
Yep.
but it's crazy. And so we've been at it for 3 years, and it barely feels like it. So it feels like there's a lot of life left. And now being full time, that's just opened up a whole new level of possibility that we can do and liven it up even more and start traveling and stuff like that. So I don't know. I feel like it's really just at this point, even after 3 years, we're just hitting a new chapter.
I do hope you guys get out here for the gem show one year.
I want to. I'm dead ass serious about it. And I mean, I was like considering it, you know, I mean, COVID fucked it up, you know, but like, you know, like 2020 or like this year, you know, but I knew it was still not going to happen it's January, right? Usually when it
Yeah, at
happens.
the very end of January into like Valentine's Day.
Yeah. No, I think it sounds really really cool just to be around all the rocks, you know,
Yeah.
and I feel like the energy there just has to be interesting.
It's funny sometimes.
Like how big are we talking here? Like how
The
cuz
whole
it's
city.
multiple days, right?
The whole city. Like there's the shows I go to normally are Kino, which is a big, huge, like couple acre outdoor one. Jogs, which is a big event building full, and 22nd Street and Pueblo. And those are sort of near each other, but they're great big warehouses. And Pueblo is like a collection of hotels. And there are way more than that. Those are just the ones I usually
That's
go to.
wild.
This year, we also went to the Miners Show, which is out in like a sports park, and they took over. And it was really small this year, but it was still like in a giant parking lot.
Mhm.
And that's where all the slab is and the rough and the actual people who go out there and get it.
Cool. Cool. Yeah,
And
more raw
that's
material.
just a little bit. I don't go to all the shows. I just go to a couple of them.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I would love to do that and just to see what that's like, you know, and just out of my own curiosity too, because I know there's a lot of like careers that are attending that, you know, and I bet the mixing of people is interesting all around a whole bunch of just vibing ass crystals. And I want to go just take part in that and see it.
And actually, this I don't even go to the raw crystal stuff. Most of what I go to is cut already. So that's a whole nother huge area that I haven't even been to.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, but the cut stuff is so pretty.
There are some amazing gem cutter. Oh, I will have to link you because they are amazing. They're amazing.
That like when we like I'm so lowbrow when it comes to gemstones. Like I could not know any less. And like so we before Hunter and me got engaged, we did go look. Like I'm neurotic enough to where I was like, look, I at least just want to look at some and give you an idea of what we're talking about here because it's just cuz. And so we went and looked at some rings, and I actually found the one that I now have. I just like that one, and I was like, look, that one. I like that one. That's the one. And but there I was looking at these, they were just like solitaire rings, like diamond solid, and they were so expensive. They were like $20,000. I was like, why are these rings
That's a house.
$20,000? It's just a round diamond. I don't get it. And like I was asking the woman, and she was kind of like, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a solitaire, but it's. Do you want to look at it? And I was like, what do you mean? I'm looking at it. She was like, no, let's like look at it. And so she took it out and she like put it in like a the thing with like the microscope, but not a
Yeah.
microscope. And then I got it. I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is covered in like 30 million cuts. That's crazy. But at the same time, I was
It's
like,
still a boring diamond.
it's a single diamond.
Who
And that was
cares?
my thing. I was like, what? Like mine costs beyond a fraction of that, but at least it looks cool,
visually
you know?
interesting.
Yeah, it looks like
It's
somebody
not
put some.
a round diamond. Who cares? Boring.
Yeah, there's design in, but I do get it. Like I guess if you're in it for the artistry of the gemstone, that makes sense. But I
When
was more caring about almost the setting.
when I was saying gem cutters, I mean they actually carve things into them. Like
Oh,
picture that diamond, but there's like visual interest.
that's badass. That's
It
amazing.
so is.
Oh, I feel like you just have to be so precise.
I
Like
can't imagine.
I don't have that
What kind
level
of
of nerve.
woo?
Yeah, no. I can't. I don't want another thing of stress in my life.
Yeah, that's why Ken's the one cutting the runestones, and not me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm tense enough. I don't need to clench any harder all the time.
What do you most desire for your practice?
To keep, I mean, this is kind of like a answer, but to keep learning is a big one. I've learned a lot since starting. I mean, because we really did, like, Charlie and me started at square one, as base level as you can get. All we had was pretty much zero knowledge, but a feeling of connection. And we just went from there. So to keep growing it and learning, um, is a big part of it, and also keep finding my specific breed of practice, which I've really kind of been nestling into the past year. And it's not really anything I would say it does kind of lean in like the Appalachia conjure style, uh but kind of also just with what feels right, and listening to the things here, and working on the communication in with them, and it just to keep growing is a big part of it, and to just keep focusing on connection, because it takes work. Like I don't wake up every day just like blowing magic out of my palms. Like it's like anything else, it takes maintenance and mindfulness and work and attention, otherwise you lose it. So to maintain the discipline is a big part of that too. And and to be a bit more careful, like I do. I have only one instance, and it's a far cry from where I began, to where I think we talked about ethics, like in episode, I don't know, fucking 4. Uh, and I want to say that I was a bit more leaning towards not going gray ever. I want to say, I don't remember for sure, but I want to say that I was like more, no, no, just purely defense magic, not going to go gray.
Oh, huh.
I don't know if I remember. I just feel like me at the beginning felt that way. I don't anymore. However, I do have one instance of going a little gray, and I went a little too ham. And I want to make sure that that's one thing, is like I learned that day, like I do need to be conscious to not lose my temper in spell work. And I've done that one time, and the aftermath of it, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm not like at least a little bit satisfied with, because I'm petty, and I think but at the same time, I was like, oh, I don't need to lose my cool. So that's another thing. Just things like that, like always observing what I'm doing, maintaining discipline, and trying to learn from my mistakes. Because while I'm not, again, totally sad about what happened, I do consider it a mistake, because I should not have done that. It was a cool time. That was a good story. It was a good, I felt great doing it.
I had some unconscious things that I've done, I think, like that. Back when I
Well,
was a kid.
oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Well, and here's the thing, because as a kid, I feel like you just have wild, unbridled control over your energy anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just slingshot things out if you don't mean it.
Yeah. Some kid was not actively trying to drown me, but he didn't care if I died.
Yeah,
He's dead now.
yeah. I mean, that's serious, but like that's a moment of like fight or flight, not only just in the moment, but also just in energy. You are not a fan of that person at that time.
Remember how you said that how you want why you don't want to use a wand.
Yeah.
You want the shower instead of the jet.
Yeah.
It was jet.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I would believe that 100%. Yeah. No. I do think it's possible, and again, I believe fully in this shit. Like I live my life by it. I don't like to test things because to my core I do believe it. And that is, and it was me losing my cool and seeing the aftermath of what happened to this person. That is all honestly one of the things that has solidified that belief for me.
A universal ope.
Yeah, it was and it's still going on with this. Like there's still, and it's just like, yeah, yeah, I'm not surprised. And which I might go, I might tell, I'm going to save it because I know you have a question of like, what is one of my favorite.
That is it. What is your most memorable
Let
spell
me,
experience?
because here's the thing, this day started differently. It did not start on a way that was to end the way that it did. But I was full on a energy beacon of magic and I just went with it. But to start, so I'm very, very, I don't have many like friends and people that I'm a lizard. We've talked about it. I don't let people in very well, but the ones that I do, I am deeply, fiercely, overly maternally protective of. And I don't like when people wrong them. I take it personally. Like it's a very I get so motherly about it, and I'm not like a motherly person with kids, but to my people I am.
Loyal
And
AF.
yeah, and it's if you want to say it, it's an Aquarius thing,
Are you
but
just Enneagram? Are you a 6?
I need to take that. I saw you post that, and I've never heard of it before, but I want to take. I saw Lyra posted her numbers and shit, and I do want to. I want to take that and find out, and because I am, I'm like super loyal and protective, and so someone that I deeply deeply cared about had been wronged by just a fucking schmuck, man. Just a fucking,
Douchebag.
and I was already mad about that. And I was already like, oh, just fucking over it. But I woke up that day and I was like, I need to cleanse this house. That was really where it started. But the problem was is that I started this with a chip on my shoulder. Okay. But I did, and it was honestly the most incredible cleansing I've ever experienced because it lasted for hours. And like I got up and it was just kind of like sometimes I do wake up though with like this solemn call of let's get to work and we're doing magic this
Mm-hmm.
morning. It's usually
I
in the
love those
morning.
days.
Yeah, and it's like a oh, okay. And so I got up and I just started readying everything and I didn't look anything up. I was just grabbing shit and I was like, I'm going to start doing a protection. I did elemental offerings on north, like east, southwest, like all the corners of the whole property, and like had offerings specific to each element in each one, and like called elementals in when I was like preparing them. It was serious fucking business, and it was intense before it even started. Like even like I don't know if you do deity work. Like I don't do deity work, but like elemental work, I guess, kind of the same big time, big powerful energy.
Yeah.
When you feel it blanket a room, and you're like, oh, okay, you showed up. Like it was that. And I set up the corners, and like as I set them up, I was walking and like smoking with like juniper and sprinkling cascarilla, and I like walked it several times and then worked inward. And for the very first time though, I not the very first time, but like intentionally called on a deity that I do connect with. It was I had the candle and everything, and I set it up, and I was like, I for the inside of the house, I called and like sat and just kind of, if she wanted to come, I set out an offering for the Baba Yaga.
Oh.
And she's something I very much connect with her, and being in my own kind of hermity, swampy cottage in the woods, and I relate to her sense of how she handles shit. She's right down the middle, and she'll help you if you want to help yourself, but if you don't,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And I don't know, just in that time, I just knew like that was what needed to happen. And so I set her up a space on, I do a lot of my work in the dining room table. and she had offerings that she could come, and I pretty much just, kind of said like, there's a space for you here. You can come and sit, and you don't have to do anything at all. I'm just inviting you here to, break bread with me essentially, and I'm going to be doing this. If you feel the need to yield any assistance, you may do so. It was kind of like that. I'm not being like, hey, come here. I need you to help me, Bobby. It's like, I'm not even going to go
Help me
that way.
carry this.
Yeah. It was a real, like, you can come, have a snack. And if that's all you want to do, that's fine. But that was not all that she wanted to do, because she showed up, and it was like, I remember being like, almost like you got to like grip a wall, you know? And so I put I had, honestly, it was the Baba Yaga candle from Prairie Fire Herbal, which those candles are so fucking intense. Every candle every spell, anything I've done, ritual that I've done using one of those candles is just to 11. And I used the Baba Yaga, and I put it in the very center, the heart of the house, and I started cleansing all the way out, like in an outward spiral, all the way out. And then this is when, and part of me wonders, and if like the Baba Yaga, her energy showed up and is what made me, she was like my hype man. Like, she's what made things go this way, because she thinks that this is what needed to happen. Like, she read my innermost desire and was like, you know what? This dude is an absolute just worm of a person. Let's do something about it. Like, I don't like to put the words in her mouth, but it felt like that. It was like I was cleansing the house, but at the same time, this just scrappy energy, like after she showed up, was like, but you want to teach that fucker a lesson. It was just so weird. And I went with it. Oh, I went with it, and I went with it hard. And I wound up like, you know what? Yes. And so while I'm essentially outwardly binding this person with words I don't remember, but I just remember speaking and not stopping in unbroken speech for like an hour of just a bind. And a lot of it was just repeating the same thing over and over again. And like, I wound up getting like the piece of paper. I wrote the name. I wrapped it so tight a million times in twine, and then sealed that in wax the whole time, just being like, say it. And not like, I wish you harm or nothing like that, but like
Well, that's not what binding is.
yeah, it was just like I've had enough of you.
Quit it.
It was what it was. It was a big long thing of enough. I've had enough. And so then, and I was just going by pure instinct at this point. So I bound this thing up. And then I grabbed the little bundled up wax name, and I just set out of my house, and I started walking. So the way that my house is laid out is that it's set down in a valley, and there's a very steep upward driveway. And so it's like you're in a bowl, and it sometimes feels like, even at the top of the driveway, standing on the road, the sky curves over you like a wave. You're kind of down in a hole, but across the road is just this scorching pasture land with cows in it. And so I get this name, and the whole time I'm still saying my shit, and every now and again I feel like the Baba Yaga wanted to chime in, because I wouldn't say things like through her, but I would just say things that I feel like her name would come up. It was weird, dude. It was so weird, but I was just channeling this bind, and it was probably the most intense I've ever felt. And I just walked up the driveway, barefooted, just doing my thing, get to the road, and I just flick that fucking thing into the pasture. And I don't know where it went. I didn't even look. I was like already turning around when I just flicked it, just like an absolute and a fuck off. And just walked down the driveway, feeling great, feeling good. And got back in the house, and I left the candle and her altar going all day long. And I feel like she stayed around a long time. Like, and I didn't ever really truly ask anything of her, but I do sometimes feel that the Baba Yaga showed up to my house and helped me fuck shit up one day and encouraged it. And I've cherished that memory.
She's a rabble rouser.
But like, dude, this dude's life has just blown up. And not without his own doing. And and he's a really, she's a real help yourself if you want to help yourself, but if you're gonna keep digging a hole, I'm gonna let you keep digging that hole and might help you keep digging it. That's like what's happening, dude. And so it's like, I don't know. That's it's just an interesting thing that I don't want to say that I fully regret it because I don't, but at the same time, again, I consider it an oversight.
That's a good ass story.
So that was one of my most favorite days of witchcraft because even the cleansing part was the most incredible cleansing I've ever had. It was just I think that was the day I've felt the most powerful in my entire life, and I did shit with it.
That sounds awesome.
So yeah, I was excited to tell that. That was like I read that question and I was like, all right,
Yay.
fine, I'll do it. I'll share that one.
I'm glad I asked. Okay, that's as much as we have time for in this episode. Be sure to come back on the new moon in July on the 9th to hear about the effects of real life on witchcraft, knife emojis, and the infamous and ridiculous dog bite story. That sounds awesome.
So yeah, I was excited to tell that. That was like I read that question and I was like, all right,
Yay.
fine, I'll do it. I'll share that one.
I'm glad I asked. Okay, that's as much as we have time for in this episode. Be sure to come back on the new moon in July on the 9th to hear about the effects of real life on witchcraft, knife emojis, and the infamous and ridiculous dog bite story. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of the Who Which Where podcast. You can find me all around the internet on Instagram at Who Which Where Pod, Twitter at WherePod, Facebook at facebook.com/Who Which Where podcast, and at your favorite podcast service. Want to help the podcast grow? Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. You just might hear your review read at the end of the next episode. If you'd like to recommend someone for the podcast, like to be on it yourself, or if you'd like to advertise on the podcast, send an email to whowhicwherepod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the moon changes.